Hello! Welcome back to the cruel, brutal capitalist dictatorship of Kuala Lumpur. I hope you liked my Malacca video, because if you enjoyed my Malacca video, I'm most pleased and most proud. And considering that I enjoyed making that video, I hope you enjoyed watching it. Yes. Well, today I would like to talk to you about why American patriotism is basically fascism. And any man who earnestly calls himself an American patriot but does not consider himself a fascist is suffering from a very, very serious mental disorder. Are you ready? Let's go! Okay, this video is basically my take on Shahid Bolsen's video. Americanism is a condition, not a nationality. Now, I have my own personal disagreements with Shahid Bolsen, or you might know him as Middle Nation. He's a Muslim American YouTuber who lives in Malaysia. Personally, I have my disagreements with Shahid Bolsen, but today, when I watched his video, Americanism is a condition, not a nationality. He was right on the money in that regard. So I recommend that you watch his video first before you watch mine. But it's fine if you don't. I understand that Mr. Bolsen could be regarded as a reactionary, but he's right on, spot on, when it concerns America. Now, as you know, being a loudmouth and outspoken Malaysian Chinese Aveng, I tend to attract a lot of haters from the lowest common denominator of society. Yes. My haters are basically the lowest common denominator of human filth. But it seems to me that the vast majority of people who write the most vicious, cruel, and brutal sort of hate comments seem to come from America. I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why. I was just being facetious. But basically, the number one hater in the world of my channel, the worst, most vicious, most vilest and cruelest haters come from the United States. And many of them come from the Asian American community. So what is it with Americans being so unable to disagree respectfully? You know, when I say American patriotism is fascism, they get so triggered and angry. And I say that America, you know, for the world to live, America as a nation must die. Not even the American people. Oh my goodness, I get attacked to the extent that they even attack me personally. I've even been called a whitewashed banana by some patriotic Asian Americans like Douglas Kim. Oh, and they have to bring up the fact that I don't speak Chinese and basically try to make me feel small by saying that I've lost touch with my ancestral heritage because I'm not as Chinese as one would presume a Chinese person ought to be in America. But little do they know, the Peranakans have an identity of their own that is distinct from the Han Chinese identity. We are a Malayanized Chinese after all. We are the product of a love story between China and the Malay Peninsula. My ancestor came on a boat hundreds of years ago. And he came in the spirit of peace and friendship, not in the spirit of cruelty and violence. He was not able to bring his wife and children from China because he was a sailor. He might have come with Zheng He, he might not have come with Zheng He. But the point is, he married a local woman. And their descendants are known as the Peranakans, or the Baba Nyonyas of Penang and Malacca. I am a Baba, and I'm proud to consider myself a Southeast Asian, which doesn't even qualify as Asian in the American zeitgeist. But anyway, I am very proud of being a Southeast Asian. And I have great respect for China, but my allegiance, my love, and is really for the land of Nusantara, of Southeast Asia. And I feel more of an emotional connection for Malay than I do with Mandarin, or any other Chinese dialect for that matter. But anyway, Asian Americans just have to call me things like a whitewashed cuck, a used condom for the West, a British gentleman wannabe, and all sorts of nasty names. They don't even listen, you see. They don't even, well, like many ultras in the diaspora, including in my own country, they don't try to understand that I do not consider myself as Chinese as they would presume. But anyway, this American characteristic, this judgmental American characteristic of condemning anyone who doesn't fit their mold really has its roots in Anglo-Puritanism that was imported over to America by Jackson Hinkle's ancestors. Yes, the First Nations people were already doing some form of socialism before Jackson Hinkle's ancestors had to show up, put them in reservations, and ruin everything for them, didn't they? Yes. But the point is, America is a deeply sick society. And by me diagnosing the issue of America being a sick society is by no means expressing any ill intent to the people of the United States. I want you to get better. Yes, even though most of my most extreme haters, my most vicious haters come from the United States, I really do want you to get better. I do agree with your favorite Palestinian philosopher, after all, that we should pray for those who curse us and bless those who curse us. But I'm not turning the other cheek for you, because I'm not a Christian. Yes. And no, before you take this as an attack on white people, I guarantee you that it is not an attack on white people, because white itself is an artificial construct. Yes. I don't think anyone in Europe, be that Greek or Italian or German or French people, would like to be lumped in under some vague notion of whiteness. Yes. There is no such thing as a white culture. This is not an attack on white people, because everybody in America has potential to have this American mind sickness. And the most vicious commenters on my channel are in fact not white Americans, but Asian American patriots, who ironically say that I am whitewashed. And I've lost touch with my heritage because I don't speak Chinese. But these very same super Asian, super ultra culturally Asian people, apparently, are extremely patriotic to the nation of America. And mainstream American culture, an oxymoron if anything, and traditional Eastern culture could not be any more diametrically opposed. Well, let me just put it this way. American culture is bellicose because America has a fetish for violence. Violence is baked into the American system. So while my culture, the culture of the East, is the culture of respect, tolerance, and mediation between two disagreeing parties, the culture of America is the culture of the gun, quite literally. America is the cult of the gun, you see. I mean, I have talked about this before. Violence is baked into the American culture. Just look at how much they worship the army, the military. Only when they're in active service, of course. They only worship you if you're actually fighting. But if you're crippled in a wheelchair, or if you're crippled and begging on the street for handouts, they call you a lazy, worthless welfare queen, yes. I don't think Americans particularly really respect the troops if the troops are not able to fight anymore. They've been incapacitated. I mean, look at how they treat their homeless war veterans. Look at how Desmond Doss, the hacksaw-rich hero, was treated after he was discharged from the army. He was living in poverty. We don't tell that part of the hacksaw-rich story, of course. He was struggling to make a living. He was selling, at one point he was even selling ornamental fish from door to door to make ends meet. That's some way to treat a war hero, isn't it? Americans worship the army not because they respect the uniform, but rather because of a fetish for violence that is baked into the American culture. America, for example, loves violent sports. It loves violent advertisements. Just look at the Charles Atlas ads, for example. You know, this is basically an ad where this little scrawny man gets bullied by a big, much muscular man. And so he buys Charles Atlas's course, he pumps his body up, and then he goes and bashes up the bully. So essentially he becomes the very thing that oppressed him. Yes, that is American culture in a nutshell. A culture of dominance, cruelty, and violence. Not an admirable one, I would say. Now, within America, there are subcultures. For instance, I wouldn't say that the Amish have a culture of violence. But the Amish are not what you would describe as mainstream Americans. When I say American culture is a culture of cruelty, brutality, and violence, and nothing admirable, I'm talking about the mainstream American culture, not talking about the subcultures within. And I can say that the great irony of Asian Americans calling me whitewash is that, you know, by demonstrating how vicious, uncivilized, and cruel they are in fact more Americanized than I am. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, any Asian in Asia who adopts this Anglo-Saxon mind virus will eventually become just as cruel and uncivilized. Yes. You know, in Olaudah Equiano, for example, the African slave who became an abolitionist, when he talked about the people of his village, well, he talked about people who were very civilized, very proper, and who were shocked at the very mention of swearing. So how can it be that there can be such a thing as black culture, so to speak? How can it be that black-skinned people in America are associated with violence, with crime, with antisocial behavior? Well, because it's got nothing to do with the color of their skin, it's got nothing to do with their DNA, and it's got everything to do with learning from the slave master, the Anglo-Saxon slave master. Yes. You see, there was no such thing as, for example, gangster rap or prison culture in Africa until the people who were unfortunately brought over to America were brutalized by the violent and cruel slave master, and then they learned the characteristics that they had from the slave master. It's got nothing to do with race and everything to do with a culture. That's why I find that when people in America, when you hear right-wing Republicans in America saying that black culture is a problem, I find that ironic because they're just describing American culture. You see, it just so happens that the most violent criminals in the ghetto or the most violent American war criminals are doing American culture well. They are a testament to American culture. Because America was founded in bloodshed and cruelty, and that transplants this spirit of cruelty and barbarity was transplanted into the people of America, who might, by all accounts, be gentle souls had they not been brought up in such an uncivilized society. Well, the fact of the matter is that, as I said, America was founded in bloodshed. America has a shameful and dark past, at least modern America, that is predicated upon the death and destruction of the Native American people and their culture, and the erasure of their heritage, language, and ways of life. It is fundamentally a settler colonial society, no different from Israel. And I find it very disingenuous for these patriotic American socialists like Jackson Hinkle to say, "Free America" to free Palestine, and to say that Israel is a synthetic society that has no right to exist. And I agree. But by that same logic, America has about as much a right to exist as Israel. Yeah, I mean, sure, there are individual nice Americans in the same way there are individual nice Israelis. But let's not pretend that America is different from Israel in any regard. Let's not pretend that people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were different from your average settler colonial Zionists. These were entitled, wealthy landowners who fought against the King of England not to free the working masses, but rather to fight for their own interests against the crown. And I think I care more about the average American than America cares about them. Yes, I know if you think I'm sounding condescending, I'm sorry, but I can't help it if you think I'm trying to sound condescending, but I assure you I'm not. Because I hope that you too will realize not only how cruel your country has been towards the global south, how brutal your country has been around the world, but how cruel your country has been to you. You know, I always say that there should be no such thing as obligation to anyone unless they have an obligation to you. Children should not have an obligation to their parents unless their parents looked after them well. Only good parents deserve filial piety. A country is basically an extension of one's parents, you see. And America, for all accounts and purposes, is an abusive parent. America has done nothing for you, for the most part. Your tax dollars are used to buy weapons of mass destruction. You're not even able to get universal health care, which in a developing country like mine is considered a human right. Your country is in a constant state of pandemonium, gun violence, you know, people killing each other on the street, drug abuse. These are all part and parcel of American society. They are a feature of the system, not a bug. I know right-wing Americans like to blame it as a bug of the system, but I assure you that these are all part of the American system, because America is fundamentally a very uncivilized society. And the only way that we're going to exorcise this demon known as the United States, is if Americans, like my friend Comrade Rice, decide that they no longer want to be part of this evil enterprise, this cruel, brutal, and barbaric capitalist enterprise that has its roots in cruel, brutal, and barbaric settler colonialism. The only way that America will be free, the only way Americans will be free, is if America is allowed to die a natural death. Yes. And for those of you who are angry at this video, who feel pissed off at this video, who say, "How dare you disrespect America?" I don't care. America really needs to be humble, okay? America is not the greatest country in the world, and with or without America, the world will progress, and the world will progress faster without. So free yourself from this barbaric institution, Americans, and stand with the people of the global South, and stand with the First Nations people of America that you have a historic due to. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. So I'm going to end this video by saying, to all of those who have called my friend Comrade Rice a traitor, who have called him ungrateful to America, who have tried to malign his character by saying that he looks down on the American working class, fuck you. I feel exactly the same way as Comrade Rice. Comrade Rice is a true socialist, a true internationalist who understands that race and nation are reactionary concepts. And you have no obligation to be loyal in any way to a fascistic society. The Star-Spangled Banner should be treated as nothing but toilet paper. It should be shat on, it should be used as toilet paper, and it should be burned. Every single Star-Spangled Banner, it ought to be burned and treated like the garbage it really is. No different from the Japanese imperial flag. So, if you ask me, do I feel sad about people disrespecting America? Well, I'll say I feel about as sad as I do if people disrespect Japan. I don't respect Japan either, and I've no reason to respect Japan, considering the history that I have with the Japanese, and considering the entire world's history with America, being bullied for the past 50 years, 60 years, 70 years by America. I don't think the world is obliged to walk on eggshells when dealing with America. The truth is, American patriot, that no one idolizes America anymore in the same way that you think they do. If people in Asia are polite to American tourists, well, it's the same thing as the slave smiling at the slave master. And the slave master is stupid enough to think that the slave likes him. In fact, the slave is actually planning to kill the slave master and revolt. The global South does not like you. The global South does not like America. And there's a reason for it. So, yes, if you want your reputation to improve in the eyes of the world, the way to do it is to follow the path of my friend Comrade Rice, and to turn your back on this evil fascistic society known as the United States,